Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, and we are super excited for today's guest. It's funny, I've known this guest kind of as a student. I never really had him in my class, but I knew, who he was in fifth grade. He lived next door to at one point to my best friend and playing hoops outside all the time. We used to always say, this kid's outside shooting 1,000 baskets. It doesn't matter the weather, the temperature, whatever. He's always out there day after day. So someone who I know loved basketball at a really young age. And now to see him as a coach, a really good coach, and has a team playing really cool and good basketball. That in your face style that I've seen before. Calls really good timeouts. Like I noticed just games that we've covered and so on. So just has developed into a really good coach and someone who I think's taken a program that was struggling at one point and has brought it back to a competitive program. And really excited to have today's guest on. So without further ado, also this year's Tufts Classic champion. Let me throw that title in there because of the trophies in the background. But Dom DeLuca, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, as I said, I meant everything I said. We were really excited to get you on here. I know you've been a big fan of us. We've covered your games before. I know you've early on used to even message me here and there and just say like, "This is kind of cool," and I see what you're doing. So, never forgotten. Always appreciative, and so it's cool to have you on here. But let's talk about the Mustangs. Right now you guys are currently 10-7. You qualify for state, so congratulations. That's obviously you did last year as well. So I mentioned it. We'll kind of talk about this from the beginning a little bit. Let's just like rewind before we jump into today. You took this as year three of taking over a program, and most coaches in any sport, no matter what it is, year three is a big like judgment year of kind of how your program has developed because your freshmen are now juniors or sophomores and now seniors. So to kind of see the growth and development of a program when you took it over. And you took over a program that was struggling. I mean, we covered a game and and they just had a struggling year for whatever reasons. It could be a million different things, but you took over that program the very next year and obviously have your lumps as a first year head coach, the ups and downs and your learning lessons and all that, but you definitely brought the program a giant step forward as far as competitiveness and being in games and looking like a functional offense and defense, if I'm being totally honest, which was great to see. Talk about year one, jumping into coaching, and yeah, seeing the development of your program a little bit.
Yeah, year one was definitely tough. Definitely tough, especially from going from a JV team with girls who are like just picking up a basketball and just playing for the first time, and then straight into like full varsity games and varsity practices and all that stuff, and having to schedule games and jerseys and
God,
I,
yeah.
I was a little overwhelmed the first couple months, but I was so excited to just like have the opportunity to do it all. That first year we had a group of like six seniors who have been playing for a really long time and I think over the course of their first 3 years in high school they kind of lost their love for the game a little bit and I had them their senior year and I was trying to flip everything on its head, like I was trying to change everything that had just happened the past 3 years for them. And it was tough. Like they didn't really know if they wanted to be there, which was tough. And then it kind of trickled through the team. Um, but we finished that year with 9 wins, and
Just shy of playoffs. I mean, that's
just
a,
just
that's a
shot,
game shy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried giving that team all the credit in the world because like they had won 3 games the year before, and to have a 22-year-old boy coach come in and go to 9 wins. I gave them all the credit in the world for that. So
Yeah, I mean, and that's not easy. I mean, that's not easy. Obviously, they're trusting you, and you mentioned the age. I mean, age is age. It's not necessarily like you mentioned all the things that overwhelmed you. Like basketball. Basketball is basketball. Like
right.
but like now you're dealing with, yeah, jerseys and school problems and dealing with parents and dealing with scheduling. What if the bus runs late? And then there might be something wrong in your JV or freshman program and you're dealing with that. So like I get it, dude. Like, and
Yep.
people don't understand that. And I think that's
They
what's kind
don't.
of crazy. And even more impressive with you is that, yeah, you took a team that I covered the year before, so I can say this, that wasn't very talented and wasn't very good and maybe wasn't coached the way it's being coached now. But to see you year one. So I didn't realize you were one game shy of the playoffs. I should have did my homework a little bit better, but like that's impressive in itself. I mean, you brought a team that struggled a lot to almost making the playoffs, and maybe wouldn't have had great success in the first round of the playoffs, but still would have made there, and a huge leap for the program. More youth getting involved, kids seeing that. You guys have
Right.
a social media presence. Like it all adds up. It all adds up. So that's a huge success year one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously last year you guys had great success. You made the playoffs. I covered you guys. You had a pretty good team. You had pretty good depth. And now you're jumping into year three. And like I mentioned, you're currently at 10-7. You're more than three-fourths of the way through your season. Talk about your team, like your jump now. So obviously you made playoffs. So it was a jump year two for you as well. Where do you think this team that you're currently coaching right now, what was their jump from year two to year three that you are just kind of seeing has pretty much played out as your season has gone on?
So well, last year we lost a lot of size. Like four of our players were bigs. I'm sorry, three of the four seniors were bigs. And this year, just we really only have one or one and a half. I call them one and a half bigs.
Yeah.
Uh, so going into this year, I knew it was going to be a little bit of a struggle on the glass. Um, Interior defense wasn't going to be great. So all I've been stressing all year is just like be physical, fight hard with a smaller team. Like teams are going to out rebound us. The only way to stay in games is fight, like be physical, push each other around, shove, like make sure we're boxing out. Um, And the so we started off this year 6-0, and we really weren't, we were winning games without really being physical. We were kind of relying on talent and skill, which was great. And then these past few games we've just been like as physical as I could have imagined, you know. Even at the Tufts game, like we were just more physical than Somerville,
Yeah.
which literally helps lead to wins. Especially in girls basketball. Like if you're the more physical team, you have a phenomenal chance. And I've just been telling them that every day, like be physical. I told them our word of the month in January was physicality, and every day they're bringing physicality to practice and games, and it's been going well. So I would say the jump from last year to this year is we're definitely more physical, and maybe a little tougher mentally and physically, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, because that means it sounds like the girls are pretty coachable. Like
Yeah.
just from the leaps and bounds that they made, they want to be coaching. I agree in the Tufts Classic, like Malerba was all over the floor. I mean, she hurt her ankle, she came back in and she was like diving still and still playing tough on defense. And yeah, I mean, you could see that. That's like evident as someone who's like a average knowledge basketball guy, but just sitting in the stands and trying to say, like, all right, how is this team coached? Like, let's see how this team plays. You can see that. You can see that your girls play hard. And on the sideline, you're not. And what I've also noticed, I sideline watch a lot. Like I'm a huge sideline watcher when I cover like beyond stuff. Like I'll spend like sometimes just like if someone's staring at me, they might just catch me watching a bench for a minute without the camera, just like watching, because I just feel like I also am so interested in how the team is playing out there. But then, okay, well, how's the demeanor of their coach while that's going on? And you're pretty calm. I mean, every coach has their moments of yelling or getting mad or getting frustrated. But I would say, as far as coaches that we cover, very calm, very mild mannered. I think when you get mad, it's the girls realize it, right? Like that's the approach that I see. Like, am I on that or am I close to that?
Yeah, I would say you're pretty on that.
Yeah.
I'm very calm just because like I have all the faith in the world that they know what they need to do. Like I don't I like once it becomes game time, I feel like I don't have to do much. They know as much as they need to know in every game, every possession. Like they know what they need to do. So that's why I'm pretty calm for the most
Yeah.
part. I've
Yeah.
had moments this year.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I think you have to. There was a part in the live stream that you got mad about, like an out of bounds call, and the kid James that I was doing with these, like, Coach Luca doesn't look happy, and I was like, yeah, he shouldn't be, like, and I like agreed with you on it because I'm like, and then I mentioned I was like, yeah, he doesn't like, he's pretty calm, so. But I think that's great. That's a great balance to have. I think as a coach, like, yeah, God, it's who you are, right? I think
Yeah.
that's like what you learn about coaching the most is I remember early on when I coached, especially when I was your age. I mean, God, I think you had like you run a program at that age. At 22, I was just like pacing the sideline coaching a football, like, let's go. Oh, like that like crazy young kid who like wishes he was like kind of back out there. And to hear like you run a program at a young age and then to see your demeanor on the sideline, to see the effort of the girls, like it all just kind of makes sense. It's like Brad Stevens-esque. Like I just kind of see that a little bit. But the coaching thing I see, like, that's what I noticed in the Tufts Classic. I mean, talk about that game. I mean, it was fun to live stream and so on. You have the trophy in the background. There's a lot of pride in that. Like, I get, rivalry game, especially playing at a university. That was, beautiful court that they have at Tufts. Um, Talk about winning a game like that and maybe what it does for your team or what it has done for your team as a result of that.
Yeah, I tell them every year at the beginning of the year, like even during tryouts, like I'll bring the trophies to tryouts sometimes and just put them on the floor before we start. Like that's our Super Bowl every year. And I've been super lucky and blessed enough to win all three every year. That game you can just tell. Like you walk in the gym and you walk in the locker room and the energy is just different. Like the girls are excited, like they're ready to play. They're all super nervous. That's why we get there 2 hours early just for them to get on the floor, walk around, hang out, like kind of get those jitters out.
Yeah,
But the biggest thing about Tufts is it brings your team together because you're on the biggest stage.
right.
You're in front of all those people. Pretty sure like after the first quarter by halftime, our that gym was packed, like
Yep.
filled to the brim. And even as a coach, like I get a little nervous. Like I look out into the stands and I'm like, there are so many people here like watching every move we make, everything we do.
Mhm.
It's crazy. But that game is so important for to our whole season. After that win, like it brings the girls together and they're even closer than they already are. And the way they play, they bring that with them for the rest of the season. Like they know what's on the line at Tufts. Like
Right.
it brings out a different beast in them. And once they unleash that, it follows through for the rest of the season. So I say that Tufts is the most important game of the year, whether we win or lose, like because I know they're going to play hard. And once they play that hard, it follows us till the end of the season.
Yeah, and that's like so what was that? Probably like your like 14th, 15th game, maybe 16th game, somewhere around there.
That was game, yeah, 15, I think, 14 or
Yeah, so
15.
75% of your season. I mean, that's at some point, that's when teams start getting hot, and those are like somewhat the scary teams to kind of play in the playoffs, depending on where they fall a little bit. So I agree with that. I mean, that's a really good point. And like you said, the highest stage, big energy, and the girls were pretty like, pumped up.
Yeah.
And I say that because then I cover the boys game after, and I kind of saw how defeated they looked, right? And then I saw how
Yeah.
pumped Somerville was, and I go, God, like
Yeah.
yeah, I knew it was like the game was a big deal, obviously, but I think this year was the first year that I realized, like, almost seeing Medford not win on the boys' end to realize how big it is to actually really win that, and to see that you've kind of won it every year too. I mean, you haven't had to have that reality yet, and
Not
hopefully
yet.
maybe never will.
Hopefully, not yet.
Um, but also while we're talking on the Tufts Classic, I'm not sure if you heard the broadcast or not, or listened to the live stream afterwards at all, but we're talking about the concession stand here. What's your thought on a $2 bag of Fritos? Think that's high? I think that's low. What do you think?
That's a little ridiculous. That
I
is,
mean, God, right? Like that should be no more than $1 because you open up any of those bags, like Doritos or Lay's potato chips, those small ones, and there's like five of them in there, six of
yeah,
them in there, maybe like, or a big one that's like crushed into like a bunch of
yeah,
smaller little pieces,
that's
But
bad.
God, blown
That's
away, blown
that's
away.
terrible.
And I got crushed on this. Like on so I posted it and I don't know if I don't even know which cheerleading team was running it. It might have been even Tufts running it. I don't know. But God, I got blasted afterwards in my DMs a little bit about it. But I stand by what I said. I said the
I
same thing
agree.
too. I said $2 bag of Fritos is outrageous. You can get mad at me all you want, but I go, you saw the poll. You saw the poll. We had over 150 people that voted yes, it was outrageous to like 20 people who said no, like fear game. Like
That's horrible.
so,
Wow, that's
yeah.
Wasn't us running that. That's terrible.
I know. But it was, I mean, it was all in good fun. I couldn't believe that some people were really that upset about it. But hey, you know what? That some people got big priorities in their life, some people don't. And
Absolutely.
so they're just gonna figure it out. But back to the basketball stuff. I mean, obviously as you're kind of finishing out now, you know that you qualify for states. This is a second consecutive year, so obviously a big uptick in your program and so on and so forth. This must be a little bit tricky as far as guiding the girls a little bit because obviously at this point every win matters because you want to get the better seed and see where you fall in that, whether that's going on the road somewhere or maybe getting lucky and hosting. For you, this is kind of like, yeah, like your team's got to be playing like all cylinders go here. Like, everybody's kind of like the best basketball you're playing. Do you feel like your coaching style philosophy changes a little bit? Do you kind of stay to who you are now that you've experienced the playoffs at this point, jumping into year two? Is there an approach you're taking differently? Is there something that you maybe overlooked the first time that you're like, this time around, I want to make sure? Or is it just basketball's basketball?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't think I've really thought of it like that yet, but
Okay.
I would say we're sticking to our guns. Not much changes on my side, just like I tell them get better every single day. And what's good about this year is since we've qualified for the tournament, our last game is February 5th,
Okay.
which is our senior night. We won't play that playoff game until after February break. So we have like 2.5 weeks to kind of prepare for that. So
Yeah.
that'll be like maybe a little bit of a boot camp the first couple days into like conditioning and strength stuff. Um, so I don't think anything's gonna change. I think I might be a little tougher and point more things out because I have more time. Maybe point out more details about little things that might not matter in game 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 of the regular season. But no, I don't think much is gonna change. I think we're just gonna keep doing what we do and stick to our guns and stay tough.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. I mean, when you mentioned the mental toughness aspect of it earlier, like people who are just like listening to listen versus people who've like coached and, have played, like mental toughness is God. Like if your team
Big
just
thing.
doesn't have it, like it like you peak, like you do have a ceiling because you are going to get into like tough situations in league games or non-league games, but like games that you got to have or moments you got to have. And mental toughness is more than skill, more than physicality, more than anything. And if you're not ready for those moments as a team or kids aren't like wanting those opportunities when they're in those moments, man,
Yeah.
it is a hard team to coach.
Yeah.
Um, but for you, I mean, obviously, with that all being said, I'm picking your brain here on the other side of this a little bit. You're a young 22-year-old coach, man, building a staff. Just curiosity. I don't know what your staffs look like over the last few years, if there's been turnover or not, but what are you looking for in coaches and obviously helping you develop this program and wanting to have a voice that echoes yours?
Yeah,
Or
guys.
is it just kind of like God, sometimes you have to find the coach because there's not a lot of good out there either.
So unfortunately, my first year it was just going to be two of us, me and my friend Vikram, who played with me at Medford High School, and he's an X's and O's guy. He's a smart, talented young coach too. But me and him are the same age, so
Yeah,
there's not much like there's not much more knowledge. We both know as much as we both know.
right.
Um, and then we have another assistant, Nick. He's 2 years younger than us. So we're by far we are the youngest coaching staff that we've ever seen. Like
In the
we're
state, maybe. Like
in
in
the,
the
probably
state.
probably
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but part of me thinks that's a good thing. When I was first like thinking about this even being a possibility, everybody's first thing was like, no, you're too young. It's not going to work. Like you've never had the opportunity. You're too young. And thank God Bobby Maloney and Rachel Perry, shout out to them. They took a chance with me. But I think being young is good because the amount of energy that I bring to practice, the intensity that I bring, like, some guys that have been coaching for a long time like don't have the drive that I have at this age now, and I kind of hold on to that and use that every day. Like I'll come into practice, and if the mood is down or like there's not enough energy, like I have to be the energy, you
Yeah.
know. And I feel like I do a decent job being kind of crazy some days,
Yeah.
and just getting the team riled up, and then it flows through the team. It's kind of contagious when one person has energy, because when I have energy during games, I turn around and look at the bench and they're going crazy. And sometimes I feel like it starts with me. Like there are games when I don't have energy and I can tell like the bench is kind of quieter too. And on the floor we don't have energy. So a lot of that I put on me. Um, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, and I'm trying to compare. I mean, obviously, building a football staff, I have so many more coaches, right, to kind of hear. So,
Right,
so
right.
I'll compare it to something that I know, like my summer program, right? Like I have myself and two assistant directors, so that's like a smaller staff, so we can compare that. I think it's so important what you said. What I really liked was that your friend is such as X's and O's person. Not
Yep.
meaning that you're not, but like that's nice to have somebody else on the staff who has a lot of knowledge, who you can bounce ideas off of, and sometimes or more often listen to their idea and be like, "Yep, that's a great idea. Let's go with that. Let's do that." Especially with everything else that you're dealing with, to have somebody else with knowledge on there is just to know that you have a good X's and O's person. If you're not able to be there right at a certain moment or a certain
Right.
part of practice because you're dealing with X, Y, and Z, that's nice. I look at like my staff, and I have two people, one that and Nick and Jocelyn. And Nick's like that rah energy person at camp that like gets things going. We'll run around, go up to the gym, run up to the field, do all this stuff. And my other assistant director, she's great because she does like all the small things that matter, that are like big things that like if you don't take care of those small things, they're gonna quickly blow up into big things. And
Yep.
and always lets me know things that are going on or that I should know that are really important. So it's like two completely different people that bring such a great balance to my camp, my in my job, because they're on top of the things that are really small things but important things that if you're not on top of it quickly makes everything else blow up. And to
Yeah.
hear you with your staff a little bit, God, it'd be nice to get like a veteran on there, someone who's coaching and throw stuff at you. But it sounds like you guys also have an interest to grow and an interest to like develop as coaches, and you're not just stuck to your ways or just stuck to I do it this way and that's it. It seems like you're also extremely willing to grow. I mean, obviously your program's grown. You learn a lot as a young coach. So yeah, kudos to you. I mean, that's a great answer, actually. I was curious and thought that when you first got the job, I go, man, I wonder how he's gonna like build his staff because it is a lot of responsibility on you.
It is. It's tough.
Yeah, you know. Um, and then with that being said, like, have you it's obviously tough because you only allowed like a certain amount of coaches, but what would you say coaching wise is your biggest like this is our identity no matter what. Like, and maybe you're still trying to figure that out as you're in year three, but is there just a philosophy or a mentality that you're like, I don't care about X, Y, and Z about how we are, but we always will be this?
The tougher team on the floor
Yeah.
every night. The past we talked about this a little before. The first 2 years, um, our teams were man-to-man defense in your face. Like I don't care if we pick up a stupid foul, like we're still in your face. Like
Yeah.
this year's been a little different. We've played a lot of zone, but even still, like in our zone, like if you catch a ball, like there's a girl right in your face. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like we're the more intense and tough team every night. I don't care if we lose by 30 or 100. We are the tougher team on the floor. We might not. There's going to be games where like we're definitely not the better team, the more talented team, the more skilled team,
Yeah.
but we are definitely the tougher team, and that showed last year in the tournament game. We went to Lincoln Sudbury, who is an absolute monster. They're
Yeah.
phenomenal, and they beat us by like 50 or 60 a few years ago when they
That's
played.
the game we covered you. That's the game we
Yes, that's
went
right.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they killed us. And when I heard we were playing Lincoln Sudbury, I thought back to that,
Yeah.
and we go in there, and I think we were up one or down one at the half, and I was a little shocked, like, but it was a good feeling. And it was just by us being more physical. Like we were in their face, physical, tough. And I mean, we ended up losing by like 15 or 16 points, but compared to what we
Right.
lost them by a few years ago, I harped on that on the bus ride home. Like, look how far we've come just by like sticking to our guns, being physical and working hard every single day. Like, look where it really has gotten us, you know?
God, what a buy-in. If I'm a kid sitting on that bus and hearing that after that game,
Yeah.
God, I'd be like, I dying allegiance to Coach DeLuca. Like, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
is, and I mean that because I was at that game, and now we can okay, now we can talk about that more openly. I was
Yeah.
trying to tippy toe around it earlier.
Go for it.
I will say this. There was one point in the game I went to John Sensabaugh. We were both sitting there, and I said, John, we can't miss a basket, like a free throw,
Yeah.
because I don't know if they're gonna score. Like, and I don't mean that insultingly towards those girls. Lincoln Summer was like fourth in the state too, I
Yeah.
think, at that moment. Like they were like one of the best teams in the state on top of it. So yeah, I was at that game. So to hear that at halftime, you either up or down by one and you lost by 14 to 15, clearly the talented, just talent maybe pulled away a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's
Definitely.
not because, you know, your girls didn't come play or weren't prepared to play. It was just because the other team was just better, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's gotta be huge. I mean, that
It
God, I
was. It
mean,
was a great feeling. It really was.
yeah, I mean, and I knew, and I remember I was like, maybe I was following it on Twitter or something like that. I feel like, yeah, yeah, I remember. I actually do kind of sort of remember that, or maybe it was my principal was telling me, but I do remember him kind of saying like, I heard that echoing voice, like kind of the same thing, like played
Yeah.
really tough, and yeah, that's so funny. Okay, yeah, so I mean, that's all, and God, I mean, building a staff and man, that's a lot of maturity for you. Do I mean, I don't know if people say this to you, but I will say this to you. That's a lot, man. And I think what you like, just take a step back and just like look at it for a second because that's first of all, if it's hard to take over a program, doesn't matter how old you are. But at a younger age, it's also hard because it's not, you don't know a lot either. And I don't mean that in an insulting way, but like, I'm sure, like you said, the first 2 months were so overwhelming because it was, wait, I got to do that? Wait, I'm responsible for that? Wait, that's my job? Like, that God, that's what it was for me in football, man. Stuff that just I was like, wait, I gotta do that, like you
Yeah.
know, and so that's kind of like, and people don't realize those aspects of the job. They just judge you on the on court stuff, you know, and God, you see the growth from year one. I mean, that's impressive to year two. And then to realize, yeah, that was Sudbury that you guys played really tough. And yeah, I was at that game the year before. I'd be like, God, what an awesome like measuring stick for you at the end of the year to say to your girls, like, yeah, like we had our ups and downs and you know, and practices were tough or moments were tough, but God, like look where it brought us. It brought us
Yeah.
here. Like, you know, and I could see it like on the floor at the Tufts Classic, like I mentioned earlier, girls diving on the floor, playing tough defense, getting tough under the rim, even if they got out rebounded, they were like you said, like right there, like contesting the rebound, you know, if they shot right away or contesting them, they have to kick it out. You know, that's a testament to coaching and so on. I guess the last thing I'll ask you, or one of the last things I'll ask you anyways, is what would be your advice to young coaches out there? I mean, God, you are like the poster child of it in a sense, like asking this question. Someone who's 21, 22, 23 years old who looks to see that what's opening for head coaching positions and decides to apply for it and have many people saying, ah, you're probably too young. Ah, you probably shouldn't do this. Ah, I don't think it's the right move. And to mentally guide them in the right way into saying, like, what would be your advice to someone who's in those shoes?
Um, there's a lot that goes into that. You know, I was a freshman in college at Salem State, living there my freshman year, and I got a phone call asking if I wanted to be a fifth and sixth grade girls basketball coach in Medford. And you know, any college boy their freshman year is probably going to laugh at that and
Like,
say
no.
absolutely not. I kind of took it. I honestly took the opportunity as like a kind of a not a, I don't want to say a joke, but like it was kind of just for fun, you know.
Yeah.
And I drove from Salem to Medford every night after class to have practice and games and I just after like the
So
first
everyone should have
night,
knew then. Everybody should have knew then. Like,
yeah,
God, yeah, yeah. What
that's
the?
that's what's gonna lead me into my advice for younger coaches.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like literally when I tell you snowing, raining, like it didn't matter. Like I was driving to the Andrews for our hour and a half practice and then back to Salem. every night, and then it leads to, then COVID happens, right? And I'm losing my mind stuck inside. And like the day that you can go outside and be 6 feet away from people, I throw out a text to the group chat and parents, and we're at Victory Park, like doing ball handling 6 feet away from each other. And then it leads to the head coach at the time asking if I wanted to coach JV. So when I'm coaching JV, I'm coaching the JV girls basketball team at the high school, the seventh and eighth grade travel team, as well as helping out with the fifth and sixth grade travel team, all at the same time. So it was a little hectic that one year. Then the second year I had to give up travel to kind of focus on the JV team. And then it led to the opportunity at the varsity level. So where I'm going with this is you kind of have to get your feet wet at somewhere, like even if it's for free. And I say this to everybody, like, because everybody asks about, oh, how much do you get paid? Like, I don't do this. If I was doing this for the money, I wouldn't be doing it.
A lot of coaches wouldn't, right?
Yeah, right. I do it because I absolutely love it and I love the kids, but you gotta start off somewhere, and you have to be content with not getting paid for a certain amount of years. Like you have to do it because you absolutely love it, and you have to put 110% into absolutely everything you do with that opportunity, and it'll lead to good things, like all it takes is one person to see how hard you're working, and how hard you're trying, and then word of mouth spreads. Um, but that would be my advice. Like you got to start somewhere. Everybody wants to be a varsity coach just because, like, people think they can apply and be a varsity coach in a city that they have no correlation with. And at this level, at least in Massachusetts, I feel like it's based on politics. If you know somebody big, like unfortunately that may help you get the job, but I think what helped me is just working with these group of kids from their fifth and sixth grade years to now they're freshmen and sophomore, and it's kind of a full circle moment, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, that is really cool. And I think what's so cool too is like, God, kids wouldn't be doing that in college. I mean, let's be real. I mean, that's a hike, and that's not in I mean, distance is like, oh, no traffic, it's this, but there's never no traffic, right? So that just adds into the amount of travel and then balancing obviously the academics of yours. And man, that's a lot to do. That's impressive. I think that's kind of speaks to who you are a little bit, obviously, and what like we've been just talking about this entire episode. But man, just God, I mean, I'm kind of lost a lost for words a little bit in the sense that I knew you were all about basketball. Like I knew that, like I mentioned, but I guess I didn't realize how much you were doing, like even with the travel programs and so on. I mean, no wonder why Bobby and Rachel didn't really hesitate or blink an eye at it because those families know you, those people know you, they hear what you're doing. I mean, God, if someone said to me, yeah, this person wants to help you with this and this is what they bring to the table, and as soon as I heard, well, this is what they've done since they've been 18 years old, I'd be like, yeah, okay, no problem.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
because I know you work hard and I know that hardworking people are going to do what they have to do to get what they want to get done or need to get done. Like, that's just kind of no brainers. That's, and I think people struggle with sometimes handing the keys over to young coaches or younger minded coaches because of the inexperience. And sometimes it takes an athletic director who just sees bigger than that and sees it,
Yeah,
like Bobby has. I mean, I've known Bobby a long time. I've worked with, he's been my boss for my summer program forever. Like, he talk about a person who lets his leaders and lets his people that run things do it and backs them and supports them to the very end.
absolutely.
Is That's great to have in your corner. And obviously he was right. He rolled the dice and he was right because look what the program has done and how competitive you are a second consecutive year qualifying for states, with an even better position to maybe play in a better situation game for yourself. So impressive. Yeah, very impressive. And I was really glad to get you on here. We're going to be covering you guys in February, like we talked about a little bit. And it's great to kind of see you guys firing at all cylinders, getting ready for state play, and being there kind of when you're firing at all cylinders right before state play. So thanks for popping on here today. I really appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was funny. I talked Dave Richard about this because that's who like lived next door to you, and I was like, remember how many times that kid was outside shooting basketball? He's like, dude, all the time. Like we like all my buddies used to like joke about it. We're like, dude, like, dude, he's outside. It's raining. He's outside playing. Like we used to love it. Like we had like bets sometimes of like, do you think Dom's gonna be shooting? I'm like, absolutely. Like so, it was kind of like a fun ongoing joke because we thought. I mean, I was a coach, Dave. I mean, a lot of our guys were coaches. So you see this like young kid outside shooting. It's like, and we used to say that, being like, imagine if we could get like our kids to like go to the field and run routes, or like in their backyard, just like fire the football, or what, like whatever your position skill set is. Like we should just video. Like we even joke, like we should just video and be like, this is a kid who does this every day next to Coach Richards' house. So like, it's when I say that, like I meant that. Like I mean, that was like God. I used to like respect you at a young age, or we would all say like, "What's up, Dom?" Like
Yeah.
because we like thought you were the man like all the time for doing that. So,
I
yeah,
try
yeah, yeah,
I try to tell my girls about that. Like you have to love it, and like
yeah,
they don't understand how I mean you've seen it. You've talked about it. Like you're right. And thinking about it now, like I would never do that now, obviously, but like it would literally I remember it would be snowing, pouring rain, thunder
yeah,
and lightning storms, and I'd be out there all night long. And I try to tell the girls that like you can't just play basketball during the basketball season. You know,
right,
the off season is the most important portion of your year.
yeah.
But yeah, you've seen it, so
Yeah, you're living proof of it. So if the girls listen to this, yeah, like, he's not joking when he says that because I literally like saw it every single time. And we used to be up there all. I feel like, and especially it was like
yeah,
Fridays and Saturdays, dude. It wasn't even like during the week trying to get out of doing homework or just like what like it was like Friday night, Friday, Saturday morning, Saturday, afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday. Like we were over there all the time because it was like our first friend who like bought his own house and owned
yeah,
his own house, and so we all go over there and watch like every sport over there, So
yeah,
it was just like, yeah, you were always out there no matter what. That's a fact. And it was on weekends a lot. So that's even more
yeah,
impressive.
yeah.
Um, but thanks for coming on here today. Like I said, we're excited to be covering you guys pretty soon, and obviously the success that state tournament this year again to see the Lady Mustangs make some noise in the tournament. So we're excited for that. But thanks for coming on here, guys. We got a busy week. We got our docu series with Malden Catholic. We are going to be dropping our second episode really soon. We got Shawshene Tech basketball coming up this weekend too as well. So we're excited. They're currently, I think, at like 12-1, 13-1. They're pretty good in their own right. So we got a couple of really good squads that we're covering right now, and obviously excited to cover the Medford girls pretty soon too as well. So without any more, Dom, thanks for coming on here, guys. I'm your
You.
host Anthony Petrellis. Till next time.